Okay, up next, let's make some his and her 4th of July sock gnomes.
Now, these socks I actually got at Target, but they do have patriotic socks like this at Dollar Tree that would work as well. The reason I liked these is because there was one star and one stripe, so I only had to buy one pair of socks, right? So I'm just cutting it right up like at the ankle of the sock into two parts. So that's going to provide me two bodies and two hats for our little sock gnome. Now, you can use whatever you have to weigh this down. You can use pebbles, sand, rocks. You can even use beans and stuff. I really didn't have anything to put in the bottom of these, and so I have some of that Dollar Tree OxyClean. Kind of gonna work like sand, I guess. I'm just gonna sprinkle some of that in the bottom of the socks, down in the toe, just to make them heavy enough so they will stand up on their own. And we're going to make some fun sock gnomes with the Dollar Tree mop head. We're going to do a his and a hers just for fun. So now it's time to stuff the bodies. I always save my old bed pillows so that I don't have to buy polyfill because that stuff is so expensive. And you can use it for crafting like this. So I'm just going to fill them. So they are about the same size. I want to make a little boy and a little girl patriotic gnome for the 4th of July. So as you can see, I only have them stuffed about 2/3 of the way, but that's okay. That's about how big I want them. So I'm just going to tie that off with some twine. And then I can also just go ahead and cut off the excess sock at that time. And we're going to do the same thing here with the second one. And I don't always do a his and a her gnome, so this was really fun. I had a good time making these. Okay, now it is time for hats. So I like to leave the top of the sock, for like the brim of the hat that goes over the little gnome's eyes. So the end that's cut is going to be the tip of our gnome hat. So I just kind of form it into a cone shape and tie it off with some twine. Now, you can have like a little floppy hat gnome. Those are cute too. But I thought that we would make this gnome hat stand straight up. So I'm going to use some more of that pillow fluff. And we are going to stuff the hat so it will stand up straight. Now, these socks were like really long socks. Usually when I make a sock gnome, they're not quite this long. So at this point, I am just stuffing it, thinking, it's probably going to be fine, but I get it on there and look, that is way too long. So let's shorten that hat a little bit. I tried just tying it off here to make a shorter hat, but it was not quite pointy enough at that point because it just had too much fluff in it still. So we're going to defluff it a little bit and tie it down a little bit shorter. I mean, they're supposed to have a long, pointy gnome hat, but not quite that long, right? So that looks pretty good. We're going to try it on. And I think that size is totally going to work. Now, I always like to do little gnome nose or gonk noses, and wood beads work great for that. These are just some raw wood beads that I got from Amazon. They are linked in my shop, but Dollar Tree has a great source of wood beads now as well. Now, for the top of the hat, I thought it'd be fun to do a little pom-pom. And so I just take some Dollar Tree twine and I'm just wrapping that around 3 fingers until I think it's about right. I take that loop. Then I tie it onto the existing twine I had where I tied off the top of the hat. And this is going to make just a very kind of wild, rustic, jute twine pom-pom for the top, which was kind of what I was going for. I kind of want to disguise the top to make it look cuter. So I'm also going to trim off any excess sock up there as well, trying to get like a pointy tip at the end of our hat. Now, once I get it arranged, I just give it a quick trim because it was a little bit too wild. But that looks kind of fun, right? Okay, now it's time to put this guy together. So The wood beads work great. You just want to hide the hole like underneath the brim of the hat. And then that way the other hole will be kind of pointed down towards the gnome so that you can't see it and it kind of looks like a nose. Now, this is the mop head from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to start pulling out some of the mop head fibers. They're super easy to pull out from the plastic top. And this gnome is going to be our girl gnome. So trying to figure out how long her hair should be. And we're going to cut down some pieces. Now, I was thinking braids would be like a very easy hairstyle for her, right? So that would work perfect if I just use 3 of the mop head fibers. They're nice and thick, so I think that's going to be plenty of hair for her. And just gluing them underneath the sock cap. Kind of just sandwiching that in there in between the 2 socks. And then just a simple braid is all that's going to need for a cute little hairstyle. So we're going to go ahead and do 3 here on the other side as well. Just securing it in there with some hot glue. Then we're just going to braid it. Super easy. And isn't that a very quick, easy DIY for St. Patrick's Day? This would be really fun to create with any little ones that are going to be out of school now. I can't believe it. My son is graduating this week from high school, and so I'm just cleaning out his desk because I'm going to kind of get rid of it. I don't really have the space for it, and it's kind of bittersweet, you know? So I'm just tying off her braid with a little bit of twine and just making a little bow in it. You could always use a rubber band as well, however you want it to look. And then we just braid the other side and tie that off as well. Just make sure you give yourself enough twine so it's a little bit easier to tie there. And she's looking super cute. I give her a little trim there at the end of her hair. And I think she is really cute. I do want to kind of disguise the tip of the hat, though, like where the sock is, just to put a little bit more decoration up there. And I found these at the Target dollar spot. They're actually bicycle charms, and they're little blue and red plastic stars. I figured since they were supposed to go on, bicycle spokes, I could just put that on the twine. And probably easier said than done. I do attempt it, though. I'm like, surely I can just put it on there and it'll stay, right? I do go back and end up gluing those just because I want to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And this first DIY is complete. All we need to do now is to make the boy gnome. Do you guys decorate a lot for the 4th of July? It's one of my favorite holidays to decorate for. I kind of go all out, it's summer and it's halfway, to Christmas. I love decorating for Christmas, so I kind of go crazy with 4th of July too. So I just use the part of the sock that I cut off before as reference. So we'll make this gnome hat a lot smaller, so we'll start out smarter here. And again, I just kind of tie off the cut end, trying to make it look like a pointy top to the hat. And I love that I only had to buy 1 pair of socks. That's kind of why I went with these at Target instead of getting some at Dollar Tree. But you know what? If they were like, stars and stripes together, still would be really cute. I do kind of like that this kind of gives me the mirror image of each one. And I only had to buy 1 pair of socks because usually to get that, you would have to buy like 2 pairs of socks and then you end up with 2 extra socks. So that looks good. They're about the same size. They're kind of sitting the same way. I'm trying to play with the weighting of the OxyClean that we put in the bottom to make sure they stand right. And then I'm going to give this one a quick little pom-pom on top as well. Just by the twine around the 3 fingers. And then I left the twine on there so that I could tie that off to the top. You know, I recently found pom-pom makers at the Dollar Tree in a couple different sizes. Haven't tried them out yet though. I wonder if they really make it easier because, you know, making a pom-pom like that is pretty easy anyway. But I'll have to give it a go. So same as before, I just kind of spaced that out and cut off the tip of that. And then we're going to glue on the little wood nose. Now, building him is going to be a little bit different, of course, because he's going to have a beard instead of the lovely braids. He's super cute. And so I'm going to use the mop fibers as well. And I'm just going to kind of go all over. So I'm going to go to the left and the right of his nose, underneath his nose. You know, he's going to have a big gnome beard. You know, one of you guys told me that these, when you can't see their eyes, they're actually called gonks. I always try to remember that because that was something that I totally didn't know. There's about enough room over there for like 4 of the little mop fibers. And so then I'm going to do the same thing by gluing 4 here on the other side, right underneath the hat. And I love a good gonk or gnome DIY. I think they're so cute. I made a giant Uncle Sam gnome in one of my previous videos, one of my Coastal Patriotic videos. You'll have to check that out if you haven't seen it. So cute. It's one of my favorites. So then I just do 4 in the middle, right underneath of his nose. And of course, that made that a little bit longer. I was trying to decide exactly how I wanted to trim his beard. I kind of like it a little bit longer in the middle, but I don't want it to like kind of get in the way of anything. But I am going to kind of give it that like shorter on the sides look, just to make it hang better. And I'm not going to leave it like that. You know, it worked for the girl gnome because I was going to make braids. But for this one, I wanted to look fuller. So I just go in and untie all of the mop fibers. And it's going to make it look big and curly. I think there's like 4 fibers in each one. I found that the easiest way was to untie it into 2 and then untie each of the 2. But try not to pull too hard on it like that because you might just pull them right off. Because you're going to want to make sure every single one of those fibers is hot glued down as well. And that's basically it for these little sock gnomes. I think they're so cute for the 4th of July. Very patriotic. I do give him a final trim once I get it all unwound to make it look better. And then I'm going to give him a couple of those little bicycle charms on top of his hat too to make him match his missus. And there it is, his and her. Aren't they cute?
And here they are. I think they turned out really precious. I always enjoy making sock gnomes. You're really not limited at all. You can do whatever you can imagine with these, really depending on what kind of socks you can find. When you can do like a his and her, you can kind of alternate like the hat and the body like that. And I think these look so patriotic for the 4th of July.